Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for another Film Fanatic show. It is Sunday, 10:42. It's actually Super Bowl Sunday, which is funny. I was out with a couple of friends last night for dinner, and they were talking about, oh yeah, tomorrow's Sunday, and it's Super Bowl Sunday, and I'm like, oh wow, okay, I didn't realize that, and I haven't actually watched the Super Bowl in a long time, and then they were talking about trying to figure out who's playing at the halftime show. But yeah, I don't know. I've never really. My brother and my dad have always been way into sports. I obviously have watched the Super Bowl a bunch of times over the years, but always excited for costume malfunctions and such. But yeah, it's what it is. But anyway, I want to thank people for our. There's been a lot of cool people chiming in and doing, or actually just commenting on a lot of the videos I've been posting, and very very cool. Almost at 400 subscribers, so very very cool. I really appreciate the support and people checking out the videos, the and just the conversations of people that I have met, back and forth, that have been commenting on the videos, and a lot of folks I don't know, and so I love that. I love that back and forth, and when you have that commonality of film that you're generally that gets you excited, gets you fired up, and I love that. Even if it's very a very different opinion, from different perspectives, different opinions. I love that. I did a video and a show on Prometheus, Ridley Scott's movie, and I did that because I was like wanting to revisit some of those movies and talk about them because of the news of the new Alien that's coming out in July, Romulus, Alien Romulus, and I believe it's coming out in July this year. So it kind of spawned on this idea of the last few movies in the franchise, Prometheus and Covenant, which are, I think, pretty awful movies. But I wanted to talk about them, and I did a show on Prometheus, and I had watched it again. There's certain things about that movie I like, but then the last time I watched it, I couldn't get all the way through it. I've always had massive issues around that about that movie, and it was this last viewing, it just became glaring to me and obvious that there was some real bad calls, big misfires. But anyway, so I did a post on that, and I couldn't believe how many people commented on that video. It was kind of crazy. I spent a few days in a row for a couple of hours just responding to comments, and it was great. I That's what it's about. It's about the movie and the movies, and again, that movie was, I don't know. It's pretty polarizing, I guess. There's a lot of people who kind of defend that movie and like it, and then there's a lot of people like myself who don't really like that movie. So there was, varied, a huge varied amount of opinions around that movie, but it was all civil and it was great. And that's the thing. It's like some people getting so into it where they're like laying out the case for and why they felt that movie was, good or successful or not successful in any way. So it's very that to me that's what it's about. And today's show is on a movie which I realize I never did, and I just feel like at the end of the day, this is just a classic, one of the best movies I think. One of my favorite movies of all time, one of the best, most original movies. It really threw me for a total loop when I first saw it, and I had never really. I felt like my first experience that I when I saw it, and really every time I've seen it since. I haven't seen it in actually a long time, and that is Donnie Darko. This movie is a masterpiece. It really is. I've seen this movie so many times, but it's been quite a few years since I've actually watched this, and I need to watch it again. But I remember when I first saw this film, it literally just like I was floored. I was completely floored by it. It was. something so utterly original. Not only was it entertaining, it had a really great, science fiction premise and story. It had a very psychedelic element to it. It had really great elements of horror, very suspenseful, very creepy, and very melancholy. And just a beautiful movie. It had a lot of cool colors to it, and it just floored me. And it's such a unique movie. It's such a little gem. And this movie, it's hard to believe. This movie has such a crazy and crazy history behind it. It came out in 2001, which is just wild. And it was directed by Richard Kelly. This movie was also the movie that kind of more or less launched Jake Gyllenhaal's career, who has become a really big Hollywood star. This was the movie that really launched his career, and obviously for me, it was the first movie I ever saw with Jake Gyllenhaal. I'm not sure if he was in any other films. I do believe this was like one of his first roles. And since then he has become a big time Hollywood actor, and I've always really loved Jake Gyllenhaal as an actor. I've always thought he's got incredible chops and versatility. This movie had such a strange trajectory because this movie came out, basically it was set for release in 2001, and it was released the same week that September 11th happened. And of course, everybody remembers September 11th. What chaotic time that was. But in comparison, I don't know, when I think about you know we've all had that conversation with friends or family or people where it comes up where you're like, oh, how did you where were you when you heard about the bombings of the World Trade Center, and basically the feeling that the world, we were at war, and it was in our home. And so that's a thing that everybody has always described and talked about, and very terrifying and horrific. But I don't know, I think of that time a lot, but then I also feel it's twofold for me. I also feel, reflecting on the COVID pandemic that we've been going through for 4 years now, which is mind-boggling. The and I think about especially the first few years of that situation. Really, in my own personal experience, or my feelings around those two, horrendous catastrophes, I feel like I would have rather have gone through. I don't know. I felt like the experience around COVID and everything that has changed and changed forever, and everything and every conceivable way that uh, virus has affected everything. I really feel like it made the initial shock of 9/11 feel like um, just not as strong. Like I felt the going through the COVID thing was and going through that for the last few years was for me uh, way worse, way more horrific, way more terrifying, and just changing everything you thought you knew about yourself or the world. At this darkly profound level, I feel like it eclipsed the initial experience of September 11th. So very strange, but and then there's that thing too where people at one point feel there's like a sense of purpose, or people wake up and want to maybe alternate or change their lives a little bit. And there's like this kind of awakening, or to a degree, an epiphany when something really horrendous and tragic happens, which happened to us. And then you feel like you're on this cusp that things will change personally. Like there will be some kind of growth that come from those things, or there will be some new things that will happen. And I just always feel like it happens for a couple days, and then things just go back to your everyday normal BS, and people go back to complaining about the same things, getting stressed out about the same things, and nothing really changes. It's always interesting to me. Even I've always thought of the scenario of like, if the wolf is at your door, what do you do? You know, and does that would that bring about personal change or real personal growth? Um, I don't know. I feel like most tragedies or most horrific things that happen, say on a global scale, you know, it things seem to only happen to, or it seems like tragedy only affects people when it it directly affects the person and their family, where it's directly affecting them. Outside of that, it doesn't seem to really resonate with people to a degree. Obviously, it has for a lot of people, but I think the majority of as a whole, it it just felt it feels like, oh, we've just kind of gone back to doing our normal shit, you know. So I don't know. It's very strange, but anyway, this movie was Donnie Darko came out. It was getting a theatrical release, and it just happened to be the timing of when September 11th happened. So, and basically, when September 11th happened, the world shut down. And so, this movie was not seen by anyone or anything, and it went into total, absolute obscurity. And then, like, I think it was 2 or 3 years later, after September 11th, when things started to kind of come back to a degree of normalcy. This movie was, I think it was in the theaters for a very limited time, limited release. But when this movie was put on DVD, that was when the real interest started. That was the moment when people started to really check this movie out, and it became, for all intents and purposes, it became a phenomenon. People were seeing this movie numerous times. People were just, talking about it constantly. People were, you know, analyzing all of the, philosophical kind of principles and ideas that this movie brought. And, it's an amazing film. It really is. It's about time travel. It's very, very, very much invested in kind of the world of horror. It's it's a beautiful movie. It's very poetic, and it's super trippy. I think it's one of the trippiest, most like psychedelic films I've ever seen. This movie also musically really, really rekindled interest in certain bands and a certain decade of music. The music in this film, I just think, is so incredible. The music for Tears for Fears and Echo and the Bunnymen was used exclusively in this film, and I remember this movie got. I'd always loved Tears for Fears growing up, but there was a time where I didn't listen to him for a long time, and the same for Echo and the Bunnymen, and after seeing this movie, I went out literally and bought everything and everything that I could find on Tears for Fears or Echo and the Bunnymen, and I became a huge fan. I became totally obsessed with both of those bands again, and they're kind of my, one of my, both of them are, definitely in my top 20 as far as my favorite rock bands. And the use of their music in this movie was just extraordinary. Like it just perfectly set the tone where there was a darkness and a very melancholy color added to this film, and it gave it that kind of lens, and it's extraordinary. And the cast for this film is just incredible. I mean, you have Jake Gyllenhaal, Jenna Malone, Drew Barrymore is just magnificent, and of course, Patrick Swayze and Noah Wiley. Patrick Swayze, I think this is like, it was. I think it's one of his best roles ever. I mean, he's just so fantastic in it. And this film is such a great, it has such a great like social commentary kind of subtext about it, about adolescence, the bullying, growing up as a teenager, feeling that sense of isolation, going through all those trials and tribulations. But then it's also kind of questioning, what this supposed American dream is, or the American nightmare, and what success is, and how do you, navigate in this society or world of where there's so much, I don't know, sameness, where, or herd mentality, where, for decades in the United States, people felt to have that American dream that means to have a nice family or nice house to go home to have a good paying job, to have kids, to have a nice swimming pool, and to live this idyllic American life. But there's also, to a degree, a price to be had for that reasoning of where everything becomes, well, to a degree, you're subjugated by a system, and you're not really questioning everything, and that to a degree you could be burying your actual desires of what you want to do, and in regards to like questioning what the status quo is, and so this movie really touches on so many great, poignant social issues, but again, is never heavy-handed. But and it's just such an entertaining movie. I'm a huge fan of science fiction, and I think it's one of the best science fiction movies ever in the last 20, 30 years. I did not get to see this. I don't own it on Blu-ray, unfortunately, but I do have this DVD copy, which is really good. But it is definitely an essential movie to buy on Blu-ray because visually it is so spectacular, beautifully shot, and the soundtrack, of course. I've never seen it on Blu-ray. I should get it on Blu-ray. I haven't actually seen Donnie Darko in a very, very long time. But just amazing, just amazing. The villain, if you will, of the story, Frank, that has become kind of a synonymous with around Halloween time. I've seen that many times where people will adorn the Frank image with the mask, the kind of deformed demonic rabbit. Just such an extraordinary movie. And I definitely think out of the last 20 years, 30 years, if you were to pick, some of the best science fiction / horror movies that have come out that are like classics, Donnie Darko is definitely there. I think it was last year, the Waldo After Dark, which is an amazing film community in at the Waldo Theater, who they have over the last, probably 2 years now, they've been doing this amazing series, Waldo After Dark, of where they show lots of B movies, lots of exploitation movies. I've gone there a bunch of times, and they're wonderful people. I've become friends with them. I've done lots of reviews about movies that they've shown there. Just awesome, amazing. They did have a showing of Donnie Darko, and I was super pissed that I couldn't go. I think I had a gig or something, and I wasn't able to go. But they were showing Donnie Darko on the big screen, and I have gone there a few times to see some, legendary classics on the big screen, and it's amazing. So I was pretty bummed. It would have been great to have seen it on a big screen, but I do need to get it on Blu-ray as a collector, and being that this movie is such a a powerful movie and such an awesome movie. So thanks again. This is Jason Dean, and we will see you next time. Peace.